Welcome to the special report, Florida's 2025 Condo Association Financial Cliff Theories. I'm Peter Zalewski. I'm a former journalist. I'm an expert witness. I'm a consultant for Wall Street, and I also have a real estate brokerage license. What we're doing with this podcast series is trying to give you, the audience, an idea of what's really going on the ground, in the trenches, related to Florida's looming 2025 Condo Association Financial Cliff. If you don't know what it is, basically Champlain Tower, that disaster that occurred at Surfside where nearly 100 people died. Legislature's taken a number of steps, and now it's all coming through to fruition. A lot of changes coming on, a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, and we're trying to give you, the audience, an idea about what to really expect. So for this episode of our podcast series, we're talking to a gentleman who runs a property management company. He's been doing it for quite some time. He actually has some institutional knowledge related to the Great Recession. So we're going to compare, we're going to contrast, and we're going to talk straight as to what you should know if you live in a condo, you manage a condo in terms of from a board of directors perspective, or you're thinking about buying a condo. So on the other side of the break, I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to this week's guest.
This special report examining the repercussions of Florida's 2025 Condo Association Financial Cliff is a podcast series brought to you by the Miami Condo Market Investing Club trademark. Founded by Miami condo consultant and expert witness Peter Zalewski in 2024. The objective of the club is to build a community to share real-time, actionable information on the latest real estate trends and opportunities in the Tri-County South Florida region of Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach. The club is ideally suited for do-it-yourself DIY condo buyers who can rely on our latest statistics, expert opinions, and access to consulting services. Club members are exclusively invited to attend virtual monthly meetings at noon on the second Wednesday of every month. The club also offers regular meetup events in person for members to network and talk shop with real estate investors, professional service providers, and suppliers. To find out more, please visit peterzalewski.substack.com. Additionally, Peter Zalewski is always available for consulting, expert witness work, and buy-side brokerage services, just as he has been since 2006. As a reminder, we encourage you to listen or view our Miami Real Estate Investing podcast wherever you get podcasts. The podcast is available on Apple, Spotify, and/or YouTube.
Welcome to the 2025 Florida Condo Association Financial Cliff Special Report Series. I'm Peter Zalewski. I'm a former journalist. I am a Wall Street consultant. I'm an expert witness. I also have a real estate brokerage license. What we're doing with this podcast series is trying to give you, the audience, an idea of what's going on in the trenches in Florida related to the condo associations and the problems and the drama that we have playing out right now. All of it is a result of the collapse of that tower in Surfside and the Barrier Island in Miami-Dade County. Nearly 100 people died. A $1 billion with a B settlement was paid out. The insurance companies have pressured the legislature. Legislature's taken some steps, and now we got all kinds of revisions playing out. So if you own a condo, if you live in a condo, if you're on the board of directors of a condo, or if you're thinking about buying a condo, this is something you need to be paying attention to because everything kicks in 2025. And what we're going to do this week for our podcast series, we're interviewing a gentleman who's got nearly 2 decades experience managing condo associations around the state of Florida. And also he's got some other institutional knowledge related to the Great Recession. So we're going to compare, we're going to contrast, and I know that you're going to enjoy it. So let me go ahead and introduce our guest this week. Gentleman's name is Jose Pazos. He runs a company called A-Smart Cam, but his longtime company was set up back in 2006 before the Great Recession. It's called Pazos and Rabina. If anybody recognizes those names, well, Julio Rabina was a member of the House of Representatives for the state of Florida. He really lobbied hard and pushed hard for condo association and homeowner association reform, basically to try to avoid a lot of the stuff that's kind of coming to the surface right now. So all that being said, let me go ahead and introduce Jose. What's going on, Jose? How are you?
Everything's great, hectic, but we're surviving. How are you, Peter?
I'm doing very well, Jose. Thanks for carving out time to come on the podcast. We're going to try to keep it to an hour. We're looking for straight talk. Salty language is permissible. I don't think anybody watching this podcast is going to be offended. So speak freely and sort of lay it out there, and everybody will enjoy it. Does that sound fair?
That sounds great, actually. More than fair.
Great. So I made quick reference to kind of your background. Can you sort of introduce yourself to the audience, and then from there, we'll sort of progress with the conversation. But I just want them to have some understanding of your breadth of understanding of what's going on down here and the fact that you're born and raised in Miami. So your perspective is probably going to be a lot different than maybe somebody who's just parachuted in from Wall Street or elsewhere who doesn't really have the context. So tell us about yourself, Jose.
Well, thank you. I'm humbled. And thank you for having me on your podcast. And this is a great conversation to have. My name is Jose Pazos. I have been in the management industry, community association management industry for almost 2 decades, for almost 20 years. I started in 2006, and we started actually doing apartment building management and rent collection, that sort of thing. I kind of got into the community association, condos, and HOAs because I found it more structured and easier to do at that time. Now, community association management over the period that I've been in the industry the last 2 decades has transformed. It's unrecognizable. What we do today, honestly, property manager is not the correct title. It's community association manager because there are companies, of course, especially for the HOAs that they go out there and spend time on the field. But property manager is a person who, in my mind, in the definition, is a person that's on the condo, on site, working on the property, maintenance issues. That's not what is going on. And then the more we're going to get into it in this podcast, all this legislative changes only furthers my point of the overwhelming amount. What we are now is digital information archivers and distributors of information and data. We're compliance professionals now. We do your bookkeeping, of course, as always, your accounts receivable, accounts payable, maintaining the ledgers. But more than anything else, we are providing administrative support, compliance support, document management support, digitizing of documents for the compliance of the state of Florida regulations. That's 90% of what community association managers are doing right now in the field. That's what we do. It's completely different from when I started to what we're doing today. So there's definitely some things that need to be done to change that, because there are specialties even within our own field that are starting to develop. As in any growing field, that's eventually going to happen. So I always like to tell people, when you see somebody that has an LCAM license, that's like a jack of all trades and a master of none. You got to kind of specialize yourself in one area of it. Are you an HOA guy that likes to do the inspections of the violations? That's one type of manager. Or are you the overall, semi-accountant, the bookkeeper, the semi-attorney, the semi-counselor and therapist, the budget expert? So many things that are going on. And then now this added reserve funding insanity really just put us over the top. But back to the introduction, I went on a tangent. My previous life, before I started a management firm in 2006 and got into this business, was I'm a United States Marine sergeant. I did 2 combat tours. My first combat tour was in Afghanistan, and my second was in Iraq, both for the initial invasions. So 2001 and 2002. Yep. I got the juice.
So Jose, dealing with condo commandos is no big thing.
It is like a natural. It's like God said, "My son, I have a place for you," and it's in the condo in the HOA world. Yeah, absolutely. You need to have very a strong intestinal fortitude to be in this business because you're gonna get killed. It's worse than politics, and I've been in both. I've been in politics. And I've been in this world, and this world is much, much more cutthroat. You got to take things with a grain of salt. You got to establish boundaries because things can go haywire really fast in this world.
No. On that note, let's sort of lay out some basics for the audience. And our viewership is all over the world thanks to technology. So just some real quick things. What's the difference between a condo and a rental? It seems like a real basic question,
Yeah.
but a lot of people get confused. So can you just make it real simple? We'll start all the way at the bottom, and then we're going to kind of get a little bit more specific and more granular, if you will.
Sure. An apartment rental complex, for example, or a building, one owner or one company, one ownership entity, you're reporting to one person who's making decisions on behalf of the entirety of the building, all the units in it. Whatever affects, whatever has to be paid comes out of one pocket, and things are done with much more efficiency, because much more corporate efficiency, because it's corporate owned, it's private. A condo association is, as my attorney friends and I like to joke, we say, a condominium and an HOAs are kind of similar. They're kind of like legal communisms, it's really the most apt description of what it is, because you're based on, an HOA, you're based on a lot. So you're doing, one out of whatever, how many lots it is. And in a condo, you're either based on percentage of interest ownership, or you're based on a one out of 100, 1 out of 200, whatever system. But just everybody's going to pay for all the pain. Everybody's going to have pain. So you got to replace the roof. Everybody's got to dip into their pocket. You got to put the reserves. Everybody's got to tip it, and that's the difference. And then you have, of course, you don't have one boss. You have now a board of directors. A board of directors, every single one of them has a different opinion. All it takes is one board member with an agenda to put an association into receivership. It just takes one bad apple in that board to drive everything down to nothing. And I've seen it happen time and time again.
Now, an apartment is typically profit oriented, and a condo association is nonprofit, correct?
Yes, spoken like a true investor. Yes, sir. I'm giving you the management side. And yes, the simple way is, yes, apartment rental, profit. Condo is not really. It's a not-for-profit corporation.
Okay. Now, next step. In the state of Florida, if I want to create a condo out of a rental where one owner, but now I want to turn it into a condo with multiple owners, let's say it's 100 units, I would simply file paperwork with the state of Florida. I'd probably pay some law firm $200,000. 6 months later, they'd submit their template language. They change some things. And lo and behold, that same rental building becomes a condo building. Am I correct on that?
Oh, yeah. And that happened. Those condo conversions occurred. And that was really one of the big problems with the 2008 recession, was those condo conversions. Everybody, they didn't do any work to them, as we found out. And is famously in the condo questionnaires, it always asks, is this a condo conversion within the last 3 years or 4 years or whatever? So yeah, that happened. That occurred a lot. And that's pretty much the way it is. It's a little bit more difficult to do it the other way around, which is happening now.
Which is called a
termination of condominium, of course. And they're happening to these newly, I like the phrase, and we're going to go with it, the vintage condos. It's happening.
Oh, you like vintage?
I like it. I like vintage.
Good.
That's what I'm using with in my meetings. It works. It describes what it is. I think that some people were calling it legacy listen, it's vintage condos and HOAs as well. But the condos are getting the brunt of it. And those guys are feeling it, and it's going to get nasty. It's going to be a bloodbath here.
So layman's terms, we could create a condo by filing paperwork for an apartment building. You turn it into a condo. Now we can actually recycle that condo, if you will, by busting it apart and breaking it down legally by terminating the condo, which again is paperwork.
I think the statutory requirement now is above 90% for anybody to take control. And the remaining 10%, I guess there's a statutory requirement to pay them a certain amount and cover some moving costs. But after that's done, I mean, really all it takes is for a developer to take 50% plus one of the control of the building. That gives him access to the full board. And then it's downhill from there, because all they're going to do is put in a special assessment due the next day, and everybody has to sell. But that's going to happen. But yeah, it's as easy as a termination of condominium filing with the association, through the association attorney, in the state of Florida, Miami-Dade County, or whatever county you're in.
Now, you had mentioned HOA, some say also COA. Could you kind of lay out what is a homeowners association versus a condo association for the audience?
Sure. The condo association is the building, your shared walls, shared asset of roof structure. HOAs typically are lots where there are homes. They could also be a POA, a property owners association, which is nothing more than maybe a bunch of different HOAs and then one that covers it, all of them together, just because of the use of a road. The main thing in the HOA that you share is the private roads, probably a perimeter wall, maybe an access point, a gate entry, landscaping, things like that. Where in a condo, it's everything. Because in a condo, you only own the air between the unfinished surface of the walls. That's it. And that's the main difference. You have a shared structural element in a condo.
Okay. Now you had mentioned some certifications. There's something called a CAM. There's something called an LCAM.
Yeah.
Can you lay it out real simple for the audience?
So a CAM is it's a license in the state of Florida. It's they called it LCAM or CAM. Either one is the same. It's a licensed community association manager or community association manager. There are credentials above and beyond just CAM, which I would recommend to anyone who's looking for a community association manager to definitely go with someone who has the extra credentials because there's a huge leap from just having a CAM to having that extra credential. Even if the first credential is just 5 years of experience required to take the exam, it's a huge 5-year. So just a side note on that. But yeah, that's what that is. Community association manager is the thing. And then there's a community association management firm license that any property management, condo HOA firm has to have on file with the DBPR.
Now, what are the requirements or the restrictions in terms of when does a condo association, and I primarily want to talk about condos, which in my mind, for the audience mind, think vertical, and if you think HOA or homeowners, think horizontal.
Yeah.
So single family versus a tower, just for our conversation.
Great way to put it.
So when does a condo association need to bring in somebody who's licensed and skilled and actually knows what the hell they're doing, like you and your firm, A Smart King?
Well, a condo association can be managed by its board of directors. All right. Now the board,
it can. It legally can. Now, it is laughable. It is a sad situation.
Because it always ends up in problems, no matter how experienced the board member may be. I get some retired folks from New York City who were accountants, and I'm sure they were at the highest level of their game at their time. But this is a different ball of wax. So I don't recommend it, but anytime you're going to manage a condo association, that is not the board of directors doing it, it should be a CAM that's doing it. Now, they could go, with a person you contract as an employee of the association with a license, or you can contract a property management firm. What we do is we do management, we do administrative support. We've concentrated on digital management only. I wouldn't even take phone calls. No on-site visits. Wow. Yeah, nothing. We handle absolutely 100% of all of the administrative support and compliance issues, bookkeeping, everything digitally, online, and through our point of services page on our website that we call Q Square. Everything's there. Title agents can get estoppels, realtors, condo questionnaires, whatever you want, documents. It's all there. So we're doing that. We do that. Basically, we are the administrative support arm of the condo association, and that leaves a hole. That leaves a hole for maintenance. So who does the maintenance? If you're only doing administrative support digitally at that, it saves the condo money. It brings you into this century and into this decade, and you just find a sub to take care of your maintenance items. A lot of board members like to do that themselves. Again, I don't know what their level of experience is setting up maintenance for a multi-story building. These HVAC systems get a little complicated. You probably want someone who knows what they're doing. So I always suggest to people get a sub out a maintenance company for your association. So compartmentalize your duties. You got administrative, you got maintenance, and now the only thing left for you to do is grab an attorney and you got your legal. And now you have a functioning condominium association.
So it's a three-legged stool.
Yes, it is, as most things are.
Okay. Just to finish with our macro, in the city of Miami, we have commissioners, and we have a city manager, we have a city attorney, and these commissioners are elected. They may or may not be qualified. They may or may not have taken the appropriate classes, but they're the ones making the decisions, and they get to refer to the institutional understanding and knowledge of the city manager, of the city attorney, so on and so forth. Is there anything wrong with that scenario when I compare a condo association and the board members to city commissioners who may or may not have the experience? They've been elected by the constituents, and then they simply refer on advice from the experts such as yourself in ultimately making their decision. But the decision they make is theirs. You can only provide input, and you can execute what they tell you to do. Am I getting that right?
You got a great grasp of how this works. Absolutely, 100%. The best comparison is every condo is a mini municipality or a township with its board of directors, i.e. commissioners. The president is just acting as the symbolic mayor. You got a city manager, which is the property manager. You got a city attorney, which is the condo attorney. It works the same way. It's structured the same way. You levy instead of taxes, you levy assessments. It cannot ever go into bankruptcy. Just like a city, it really has to go into receivership because it always has the ability to levy. Just new owners will be levied. So yeah, absolutely. It's a great apt description of what happens. We guide. We do not have any decision-making authority. No manager should have signing authority on the checking account either, nor should be making decisions of any kind. We're there to guide. We're there to provide administrative support, research, and we try to stay away from anything that's the unauthorized practice of law, such as interpreting the law. We refer to the condo attorney whenever possible. And we don't do anything like project management, guidance, things of that nature. We leave that to the GCs. I always tell everybody, condo association management, especially after the July 1st effective date of the new laws, is like a big piece of pie of liability. And everybody has their sliver of liability. Okay, the project manager has his, I have mine as the manager of the association, the attorney has his, the board has theirs. So long as everybody's doing their job, everybody's kind of moving the liability around and we're kind of okay. It's when one of those slivers doesn't do their job, that's when it's all a mess. And in Cuban, we say arroz con mango, a rice with mango. That's when then we have an arroz con mango pie and nobody wants that. So, that's how it works.
Interesting. Now, when we talk about your firm is about efficiency. It's about bringing it in the 21st century. One of the things I would argue, and this is something I was pushing for since the Great Recession, it first came up when banks that were portfolioing mortgages, they had provided loans to individuals who were buying condos in speculative manners. They weren't able to sell to Fannie Mae or anybody else. The bank had to actually hold the mortgage, and they didn't know what the hell they had. They would submit an inquiry, or part of the loan package would be a condo questionnaire, which is basically some paperwork filled out by somebody within the office. And then the bank had to basically hope that all the information was correct. There was no way to underwrite it. So, with any kind of confidence. So I guess I have a two-pronged question for you. Just talking about where we are and what's going on. First of all, your organization is about transparency because you're collecting the information, you're making it readily available. Why isn't more information available for owners, for buyers, for investors, for everybody else about a condo association? And then second of all, in terms of trying to understand the status of an association and where it stands in terms of financial stability, in terms of its weakness, in terms of which building is being well run and therefore it ought to have a higher valuation versus something that's poorly run, hasn't put away money for reserves, and therefore should be worth less on a price per square foot basis. Can you kind of square that for us, or does it have to do more so with what you referred to earlier, which is the association communism, where everybody basically is in the same pool, and it doesn't matter if you excel or basically you're a laggard, you're all dealing with it and feeling the same effects. Can you kind of address that big picture question?